So I took that class, and they go through it, and they say, okay, there's a few ways for you to decide. Because the first question is, what are you going to work on? What is you have a full semester. We're going to develop a business plan. You need to choose. The first few classes was selecting your horse, your brand, or the topic. And they said, well, if your parents did it, maybe you should do it because you're going to inherit all this knowledge. And so they have all these different ways to figure out what you want to do. But the last one was, if you look at the marketplace and you can identify something that is not being provided or that is a substandard product, then that might be something you do. And I was like, dude, that's Salsa Limon.
Yep.
And I named it Salsa Limon. And the concept was, I just want to bring in classic Mexican tacos for the world to experience what I experienced when I was a kid.
Yep.
Just like that.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Powers, and I want to thank you for joining me on the Fort Podcast today. This show is an open-ended discussion and journey covering real estate, business, entrepreneurship, and investing. I would love to hear from you by tweeting me at Fort Worth Chris on Twitter. Hey guys, it's Chris. Thank you so much for joining me on the Fort today. I'm excited to have Milo Ramirez on with me today. Milo and I have known each other 14 years, and he's the founder of Salsa Limon, which is a quickly growing restaurant focused on authentic Mexican food. Today, we dive into his career and how he got the inspiration to start Salsa Limon. We talk a lot about what makes a great restaurateur great and what separates them from the pack. We talk about the things and the mistakes that he made early on and the way that he runs his business today. You'll hear more about 449 if you're interested. We talk about just the industry during COVID. Restaurateurs have been hit hard and how he and his peers have survived and how they've created success in a tragic time. And we talk about what the restaurant industry looks like going forward with things like food delivery and other types of technology being built. So thank you again for joining me. I think you'll really enjoy this episode. Milo, welcome to the show, amigo.
Mr. Chris Powers, thank you for having me.
Let's start off with a dive into your story growing up and what led you to your current business, Salsa Limon.
Well, I mean, thank you, and thank you for having me do this. This is pretty exciting. Well, I mean, I guess the best way to do it is to start with a little bit of chronology. You know,
Yeah.
I'm a kind of a peculiar upbringing.
Yeah, you are.
As part of the whole story, and it's peculiar because my dad is from the Valley,
Okay.
from Southern Texas, and he played football in high school, and he went to the army, and he was about to go fight the Korean War, and he was like on the ship towards Korea when the war ended.
Wow.
So he came back, and so we're one of those. I'm a second generation Mexican,
Yeah.
but I'm also a first generation Mexican because my mom is from Oaxaca.
Got it.
And Oaxaca's in the south of Mexico, and it's a very native part of Mexico. It's like the dark Mexico, like
Yeah.
my mom's first language was not Spanish, so you can get an idea of how direct our connection to the pre-Spaniard world we come from in Oaxaca.
Yeah.
And so I was born in Mexico City, but with two parents that were from polar opposite sides of Mexico. If you think Texas,
Yeah.
you want to look at Texas as maybe northern Mexico, somewhat. At least when it comes to that, to the Mexican population, or southern Texas, if you will.
Yeah.
But it's the same region, and so they're as we go, and I own Salsa Limon for all those people out there listening that
Yeah.
have no idea. Salsa Limon is I call it a neighborhood taqueria.
Yeah.
It's a great Mexican neighborhood taqueria where what we try to do is serve soul food to every neighborhood that might need Mexican soul food. That's the broad idea.
Yeah.
And so when we think about my upbringing coming from Oaxaca, I was raised in a very much farm to table environment every day. And not only that, but the quality of the ingredients are from a very peculiar part of the country with very peculiar grass, very peculiar water. And so, it's kind of like what happens with Italian or Spanish food, that is just the origin, the conditions in which the product is made elevates the quality of the product and makes it unique. And so coming from a Oaxacan culinary universe, we were raised eating cheese from a family that made cheese for my great grandfather, and now the great grandson was making cheese for us. And they would come in their cart and say, how much cheese today? And you would be literally eating a cheese that was just made.
Yeah.
When that was appropriate, or they aged them, then they would say, how many cheeses? And Oaxaca is like the France of Mexico for cheese. And we have so much cheeses, like dark cheeses, dried cheeses, young cheeses, stringy cheese. I mean, just crazy. And so that's kind of ruins you.
Yeah.
Even when you think about Mexican food,
right.
Even in that category, there's not all Mexican food is the same.
That's right.
And so that was a big component to it, being raised in that environment. And then also coming to Texas and having that barbacoa and flour tortillas. I mean, you're from the border.
Oh, yeah.
You know exactly what I'm talking about, like barbacoa and, flour tortillas and just this whole, the pinto bean, refried, that soul. That's when I talk about soul food, is that kind of like that manteca, that lardy awesomeness that makes Mexican food so great. And so I have a very broad perspective of what awesome Mexican food is. And so, but that's how it started, just coming from a fantastic home table. And then it's just a really quick, funny story, because what happened was, as a kid, I was exposed to two restaurants that my parents would take me to. And one of them was, I was, after the Karate Kid came out, my parents got me into Taekwondo because I was being bullied in school, right? And so part of the reward was, after going to get my butt kicked at Taekwondo for an hour, they would take me to eat street tacos. Yeah. And this little taqueria didn't even have a name. Yeah. They knew it by the street. It's the street on 11th Street, the taqueria on 11th Street. That's how it was known. But the guys were from Mexico City, and they would do the whole cow head. And so you would have tacos made of eyeball, of cow cheek, of tongue, of lips, of everything. And they were incredible. And they would run out. If you didn't show up, if you showed up late, I'm talking about late 9, they would only have what they call surtido, which means the mixture of everything that we have left over. So if you really wanted to get you would be standing in line, getting there early. So you have that whole that taqueria, that little taco stand, changed my life.
That's awesome.
It was the place to go when I went back home. That's one of the first places I would go see the people and have the tacos. And the other one was this outdoor steak place.
Yeah.
It was called Las Pampas. They would bring their meat from Argentina, and they had it's the Argentinian cuts, which I don't know if you guys know, but man, Argentinian steaks are
amazing,
world class.
Oh yeah.
And so this was the other one, is that I would just get there, and you could smell, since it's outside, there was no vents, you could just smell the asada since when you were parking your car, and you would know exactly what you're going to get, and it was magical. And so then I had that as a kid, and then my life started. I went to high school, and I left the country for that, and then eventually ended it in college, right?
Yeah.
And so when I got to college, I double majored in art and in business, and my focus was entrepreneurship. But one of the things about it is, I got to Dallas, and I would say, look, I want to go get some tacos, man.
Yeah.
I need some tacos. There should be plenty of options. And I went to every taqueria in Dallas.
Taco Bell, Del Taco.
Yeah, Taco Bell. And I was just like, God, I just can't find it. I mean, and when I found a place that was más o menos kind of good, there was something horrible. Yeah. That would just say, I'll never come back here again. If it was service, or if it was like just the bathroom was a disaster. I was like, God, I'd rather just not come here.
Yeah.
or the food trucks. I mean, they look so quaint, but then they'll always just disappoint. And I would be like, God, I don't know why I ate 20 of those tacos. It was kind of a good idea. Never come back. And so then that was an issue. And then I went to entrepreneurship class and I don't know if you're in entrepreneurship world. There's this kind of a famous class at SMU by a professor named Jerry White.
Okay.
He was like the guy from Tom's was in that class.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a class that's produced pretty fantastic entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So I took that class and they go through it and they say, okay, there's a few ways for you to decide. Because the first question is, what are you going to work on? You have a full semester. We're going to develop a business plan. You're gonna do it. And so you need to choose. The first few classes was selecting your horse.
Right.
Thank you. Selecting your brand or the topic. And they said, well, your parents did it. Maybe you should do it because you're going to inherit all this knowledge. And so they have all these different, kind of like ways to figure out what you want to do. But the last one was, if you look at the marketplace, and you can identify something that is not being provided or that is that a substandard product, then that might be something you do. And I was like, dude, that's Salsa Limon.
Yep.
And I named it Salsa Limon at the time. And the concept was, I just want to bring in classic Mexican tacos for the world to experience what I experienced when I was a kid.
Yep.
Just like that.
That's it.
And I want to do it in a really clean. I mean, this is where Starbucks was trying to come along. So I was like, oh man, that's exactly right. Because great coffee has been around for a while.
Yep.
But it's just great coffee available to everybody who hasn't been around for a while, hadn't been around for a while. And in that environment and all that stuff. So that's kind of like what my concept was at the time. But I wasn't, honestly, I'd never worked in a restaurant before, and I just said, what kind of authority do I have to just go on and start doing this? So I got myself a job at the first Eatsies.
Okay.
They had just opened. And so Eatsies is a Phil Romano concept. I don't know if you know, he's a very successful entrepreneur and restaurateur. And so Phil Romano, he had spent, 6 months in Italy and Europe with his crew, and they put together Eatsies. The concept of Eatsies, which is honestly, I consider to be the precursor to Central Market's, half of Central Market, which is that chef case where you're eating chef-crafted food to go eat at home. Eatsies did this way before they did. And so Eatsies had this incredible general manager. They had recruited the best because they wanted to do an IPO, and their plans was to go take Eatsies to, world, dominating the country. And so they had a really good executive team to lead that. And so I got there and I'm like, I go interview with the general manager, Dan Simons, who is a very famous restaurateur today. And he's based out of Washington, D.C. He owns a place called Founding Farmers.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they're incredibly successful. And he consults and he's just an insane restaurateur. And I go sit down with Dan and I go, Dan, look, man. Well, sir at the time.
Yeah.
I'm writing this entrepreneurship class. And I know nothing about restaurants. And I want to do a taqueria called Salsa Limon. And I want to work my hands to the bone for you. I'll do whatever I need to do. And he's like, you're hired.
Done.
On the spot. And so that got me into, interfacing with the real systems.
Yeah.
And the real work that goes with producing food at a day level. I mean, food production, restaurants are incredibly difficult because you're going through the whole circle. You're doing purchasing, you're preparing, you're cooking, you have a recipe, you're following it, and then you're also retailing it.
Yeah. And
you're making sure that every customer is having a great experience. So it really is the Mount Everest of business.
Yeah.
And you're doing it all.
Yeah.
And so, and I was like, oh man, that's when I finished. I'm telling you, dude, those months were the hardest months of my educational career.
I love it.
I was like, I almost broke. I mean, I couldn't drop the class. It was an elevated. I was at the end of my business, my business stint, and so I was like, I can't quit, and I just gotta work through the problems. I just have to produce a pro forma based on whatever. Yeah. And just bite double. Sorry, I don't mean to be laughing so much so early in the podcast, But yeah, so then that was the thing. I just got like a kind of a C.
That was like your MBA, basically.
I mean, honestly, it at least got me understanding. It's because the entrepreneurship class, they did take the whole thing through, coming up with a concept and then, working the financials and then putting together the marketing plan and putting together the exit plan. And they forced you. They grabbed the hair from behind your head and made you face the whole gamut, the whole gauntlet of being an entrepreneur. And so I got through that and I was like, God, I'm glad I got through that. And then I got to the end of my college career and I had to face myself and say, okay, what am I going to do next? I got all this education, I'm hot to trot. And my answer was, I want to destroy Univision. A little switch.
Yeah.
I want to change the media consumption. I want to change the media outlet, the media product that the Mexican viewer has in the US. I want to change the way that, it's just like, imagine that and you only had one channel as a general market, as a white population, you only had one channel. And in prime time, they only showed soap operas.
Right.
Imagine that. How would your head would explode.
Yeah.
And talk about seeing an opportunity. Then so I said, okay, that's. I can do that, or I can go deal with restaurants, which I already know firsthand the level of work that goes into that.
Yeah.
And so I opted for going out and trying to create a media product.
Okay.
That was my goal. And so to do that, the best thing, what I figured out that I could start on as my career was advertising, because there still has some business in it and there's storytelling, and that's kind of where I thought that maybe I could start getting some experience. And so that's what I decided to do. And I started off as a media planner, and my client was Frito-Lay, and I was very good at that, because they're like, okay, the Frito-Lay has, I don't know, $20 million budget.
Yeah.
For media, for Hispanic, and the thing is, the Hispanic market was my area of expertise, and because I'm obviously
Hispanic,
I got it.
Yeah,
I know exactly, and not just because of the way the Mexican community how we behave here in the U.S.
Yeah,
I also have the immigrant experience actually,
right? Because
I love when the Mexican national team plays, and and so I get it. I get both worlds. I have a true bicultural upbringing.
Yep.
So I was doing that, and I was very good at it, and was very comfortable, but I was very unhappy. Yeah. It was just not what I didn't come to do that. And so then eventually I got a job as a writer. There was just another opening in another agency, and they're like, look, we'll hire you, but we only can hire you as a writer. That's the position. And I go, well, it so happens that's the position I want. And I became a writer for an ad agency. And our client was McDonald's. That was the client, the regional product, the regional messaging. And man, I started writing, and my perspective was my idea, and which it still is one of my secrets, is to show the consumer consuming. Full on.
Okay.
So when it came to Mexicans eating McDonald's, there was a real disconnect in advertising, and I think there's still some of it now, that even if you were going to make a Mexican or a Hispanic or Latino communication, that would be more geared towards white people. It would be white Latinos being the protagonists. And I said, no. We're going to do brown protagonism in my writing.
Yeah.
And they loved it. And that's right. That's just when McDonald's switched from being smile to I'm loving it. And I'm loving it. The brand components of that are a little bit more urban, a little bit more real. And so our strategies combined. I mean, the big McDonald's people and I were kind of speaking the same language.
Yeah.
So the agency people said, look, man, you have to come into the strategy team and tell everybody else, what they're going to be writing and how we're going to be doing it. And I go, well, I really like writing, and so, you want me to go and be a strategist, I can, but, you're going to have to pay me.
Yeah.
And so that's when I started getting paid.
Yeah.
And I was a strategist, and there was really not a lot. I got a little bit of training in terms of how to create brands and what makes things work in terms of strategy and products. But some of the real stuff some of the real beautiful things that I got to do was to travel all over the country and be in focus groups and just listen to people talk about McDonald's, especially Mexican people talk about McDonald's and all the problems that McDonald's has, like, bland or not enough spicy components, just a few things that they would have that we would hear the consumers saying. I was like, Salsa Limon would not have any of these fucking problems.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can drop F-bombs.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, good. So we wouldn't have any of these issues at all. It would not. And so I rewrote my business plan.
Yeah.
This is like 6 years later.
Yeah.
I rewrote it and I pitched it to, now we're going to have some friends in common.
Yep.
Brady Wood.
Okay.
I pitched it to Brady because he was working with some people and
where were you living at the time?
In Dallas.
Okay.
And Brady had owned some restaurants in Deep Ellum, and we had some friends in common. And so I was like, look, I'm gonna show it to Brady and see what he says. So, but there was another little problem that I was recruited by an agency in LA to be a writer. It's a headhunter, and there was an agency in Miami that was about to lose the General Motors client. Yeah. Imagine you have an agency where General Motors is your client and you lose them.
Yeah.
They hit the red button and they went and they recruited me to come write for them on the General Motors product. And then they had other brands, but that was really the move, was to me to have someone like me go and help shape that communication. And so I told the people, but the people at McDonald's, say, listen, I'm going to go be a writer. And they ended up like paying me more than I made as a strategist. Mm-hmm. And I had an awesome setup. I love it. I could do whatever I wanted. So it was really sweet. Yeah. And I was in Miami and it was awesome. And so, and I needed that. I had been in Texas for a while, and I just getting out of town, getting out of Texas, going back to the coast. I'm coastal. I'm from a Oaxacan coast. So the ocean is very powerful. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. It just does something to your soul on a daily basis. So I pitched the Salsa Limon, the 2.0 version, and they loved it. Brady and I think there's a couple other guys that said like, man, this is really great. It's going to work now. And it had demographic, psychographic, the reason why this is going to work at a higher level, right? Not necessarily a brand or a store design, nothing. It's just as an idea. Yep. It's like if we had pizza, right? And I said, look, there's nowhere else in the world that there was pizza in this example, and we are eating a pizza, and we're like, holy cow, this is incredible. Yep. This piece of dough with cheese and tomato is incredible. We could sell this all over the world, and it would be a hit. And that is honestly where I sit with Salsa Limon with tacos. I really fully believe that tacos have the same universal appeal that pizza does. Yep. It does. And I can take it to China or anywhere in the world. The exact same thing that you can go eat right here across the street from the River District and have it, and it would work anywhere in the world. So at the strategic level, that's the idea. Also, now get from there to executing it, then takes a little bit more work. But that's where I was. We saw eye to eye. Brady and I saw eye to eye on this. We said, man, this is going to work. But then I said, I'm going to take this opportunity. I went to Miami. It was incredible.
So what was the point?
And then, because I wanted to get, I'm sorry, ask your question.
I'm more just saying, what was the tipping point where you said, all right, I've been in Miami working, now it's time?
Well, what happened was that, I was at the time, before even when I went to Miami, I knew that was a real opportunity. Mm-hmm. The fulfilling the potential of this strategy was a real opportunity. But yeah, I told Brady, there's a lot of other components. I just came here. I found this map that is incredible, and if we follow it, we should hit gold. Yeah. And Brady's like, I really like that, but it took some time for the idea to reach the right ears, or find its way through life, And I honestly, I was very happy. I was very happy, and I was getting closer to my life goal of media production. Yeah. And so I wasn't, but I knew that was a real opportunity. So I get a call from Brady, like, a year later. He's like, look, I was in a lunch with
Andrew Segal.
With Andrew Segal.
Yeah.
And Andrew, he wants to talk to you. And so Andrew came down to Miami and we sat down and we just, it was pretty amazing. And we just had this great, like maybe 2-hour conversation of strategy and demographic change. That really demographic people movement is really should be the generator of most strategies.
Yeah.
People shifts, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so we talked about it. We also talked about the Mexican consumer and how it's underserved and how we could probably get something going. And he said, look, well, I'll loan you the money for the first Salsa Limon, but you have to go open it in the mall I just purchased in Fort Worth.
Yep.
And I was super happy. But I was like, God damn, I get a chance to own my own design, my brand. Imagine that.
Yeah.
I've been working on other people's brands, telling people how to fix their brands, And I was like, I want to see if it's true.
So how long from that meeting that you quit your job and moved to Fort Worth and started it? What was the time between that?
That probably took me from the first meeting to getting to Fort Worth. And Andrew was like, man, he would call me every day.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll tell you, that's like when you think about entrepreneurs.
Got to be persistent.
You got to, if you want it, you got to do it until you get it. I mean, there's no letting up on something that's important. And I can see like also how this was interesting for the Grand Plaza to bring someone like me over and attempt to create something unique,
right,
of quality with these philosophies. Now, so yeah, it probably took us around, I don't know, maybe 6 months.
Yeah,
because I was in the middle of shooting a campaign for Silverado in Chile. I mean, Ritz-Carlton. I mean, think about film production.
Yeah,
at its highest level. And that's where we were. I mean, the director came from this, the best general, Mercedes-Benz director. Then they just like slow motion and just incredible film production. And that's when he's like, you got to come over immediately. Like, can I just please finish?
Yeah.
Can I finish editing this in Los Angeles? I'm going to be in Los Angeles for 2 months.
Yeah.
Just staying at like the nicest boutique hotel and living the film life. But no, but I was like, you know what? Let's go. I'm going to do it. I came to he said, come over and see it. And I saw it. I walked into the Grand Plaza and I was like, I loved it. But I mean, it might not be the best place to open your first location.
Right.
In hindsight.
Yeah.
But anyway, we did it and it worked, man. It just picked up right away. And it's like people would say, I mean, my mom, everyone, a lot of people told me, Milo, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You're an accomplished writer. You're doing great. They're probably going to offer you a partnership in this new agency. They can't, you should hang on. And I was like, you know what? I want to go try to make a brand.
Yeah.
I want to go, this is a big deal. And the stuff I'll learn from this is insane.
Oh yeah.
And not only that, but the confidence that it's a challenge that I gave myself that I was able to execute, to accomplish was very important to me. It was like part of my development as a man.
So we don't have to go into like great detail, but if I just said like, what are the things that you did right when planning to start a restaurant? And maybe if somebody's listening that's thinking about starting a restaurant, like what are the things you did right and maybe a couple of the mistakes that you made early on that, if you were to go create your next brand and restaurant, you would know to do? Is there anything that comes to mind that?
Well, things that we did right, I think that having a very clear idea of that product that the initial question on entrepreneurship, you have to have a very good argument to put into the marketplace.
Right.
Has to be really good. So you have to have, and I mean, I'll be honest, I put together the recipes and the processes in Fort Worth.
Yep.
I'd never even thought of them before the bridge was in front of me.
Right.
Now I have to come up with a menu and so I would say the things that we did right is that we were fearless.
Yep.
That we had enough confidence in our abilities to figure it out. Whatever walked into the room. Whatever walked in. I think it was also very important that I was, and this is a skill, or I don't know how you call it, but to surround myself by good people.
Oh yeah.
Like I honestly, I mean, whenever I started selecting like my taqueros, and I just knew what they had to do somehow. It just innate in me. So following those instincts that if you feel like it's not right, it's better to let them go,
right,
than to make something work just because it's comfortable. So I think it's being true to the concept. I think that was one of the right things that we did. Some of the wrong things that we did was we got very lucky because the story goes on.
Yeah,
that's where we started, but it goes on, and it's really about locations. Locations you have to think positive about especially if you're opening a new restaurant. I mean, if I was to advise someone today, I would spend a lot of time making sure that the location was right. I would also warn them of taking too much debt early on.
Yep.
It can be. I mean, it was. Okay. Now at the same time, this is something that really formed me.
Yep.
Because there was no way back.
Right.
There was no return. I mean, I owed someone $500,000.
Right.
And I was in the Grand Plaza.
Yeah. Holding
a bill of debt of $500,000, and
yeah,
it's going to get paid.
Yeah.
Well, I just had to, and it was a weekly bill. It was really hard. But that's another. I mean, I guess it has both ways. You have to make sure that you have the capital, you have the resources to do it.
Yeah.
But and also give yourself all the chances to win. Another one is keep it simple, especially as you're starting. If you've done other restaurants before, then you can have 20 guacamoles if you want to.
Yeah.
But if you're the first one, let's start off with one really, really good guac.
So 2 questions that kind of come to mind are, the first is, what makes a great restaurant location? I guess, again, it's dependent upon your demographic and who you're going after. But if somebody's out looking for their first restaurant and they're trying to make sure it's the right location, are there generic kind of rules that they should follow?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll start off with the first one is the most important thing to me is just vehicular traffic. This is a traditional restaurant.
Right.
Vehicular traffic, people driving by, high traffic count is important. And that's why when you look at where the restaurants are, so this concept of you can go a little bit deeper and identifying with people that are doing it right.
Right.
If you look at a McDonald's, sorry to bring McDonald's back up, but they're off a highway, right?
Yep.
Where how much vehicular traffic is on a highway? The highest in any DMA, in any designated market area.
Yep.
Highest. And then they are on the egress. So you can sometimes even see them from the highway. So it's visibility is another one.
Right.
So high vehicular count, visibility.
Right.
I mean, this one is not that important because Papados has proved it wrong. But ingress, egress. How do I get in? How do I get out?
Right.
Papados broke that because they have that. They follow these 2 other things with the position here they have in Fort Worth that's off of 30.
Right.
Which is highly visible and high traffic count, but it's impossible to get there.
Yeah.
You need to go around like 10 times to get there the first time, and then you go, and then you go. So they broke that rule, but they're you've seen their parking lot; it's always full.
Yeah.
But to me that's important. How to get in, how to get out. Sometimes because that shows a little bit of convenience, and if you think about it, convenience continues to be one of the driving forces of, and it depends what kind of restaurant you're going to open. If it's a quick service or if it's going to be a sit down, well, that might be different. But in the case of Salsita. And this scenario, we're talking about a quick service. So quick ingress egress is important.
Yep.
It's because ingress egress also should translate itself to the ultimate drive-through.
Yep.
Drive-through. It's I'm sorry, your listeners probably think I'm crazy, but it's absolutely true.
You are crazy.
It depends on if you are thank you. If you are you don't sing country music badly either, my friend. But if you do this, ingress, egress, signage, parking, and then the cherry on the pie, second generation.
Yeah.
Because that's where that big first one, which is don't take on too much debt.
Yeah.
You're building someone, especially if it's a landlord, you're putting in $500,000 on somebody else's property.
Right.
And it doesn't work. It's gone.
Yep.
And you have this massive debt, and it honestly can knock you out. So I would add to all those other things, the ability to find a second generation build out is ideal. The
second thing is you had the luxury of growing up in your demographic. You are your demographic in a lot of ways. You got to work at McDonald's and GM focused on that demographic. So you really entered the game with this unbelievable understanding of who your target customer was. If somebody's starting a restaurant and they don't have the luxury of maybe one, they're not necessarily their own demographic, or, you know, they didn't have all these jobs, what's like another way that people can really get fine-tuned with who their customer is? You know, I've listened to tons of podcasts about people that start restaurants, and sometimes like the chicken salad chick lady, she was just making chicken salad out of her kitchen. People loved it. And that's how she figured out what people wanted. How do people know who their target customer should be?
I mean, especially when it comes to food, I mean, to me, everybody is the target customer. I mean, honestly. So you have to be, it almost has to go from, you can't really please everybody. So you have to please yourself. And if you please yourself, you're going to please everybody.
Yeah.
That's it's kind of funny how that works. But that you want to have, when you understand your target market, I mean, obviously, please get into a business, open a restaurant that you're very well versed in the food.
Right.
That even though if you're not making it, but that you can identify, hey, this is really, really good ceviche.
Yeah.
This is the best. I mean, let me tell you why.
Yeah.
Versus, you know, is this good ceviche? Can somebody tell me, do you like the ceviche? How about you? Do you like the ceviche? No. Hey, they don't need to know. I want to tell them.
Yeah.
That's why they're coming to my place. Because I have a very strong perspective on ceviche or whatever
right.
it is. You know, I mean,
and I ask it because I feel like sometimes you see these restaurants pop up. I think like there was one down on West 7th that was like a New Orleans crawfish grill, or there was one that was like this Irish pub that used to be where on West 7th on the corner that had a huge Irish buffet that people would eat for lunch. And you drive by, and I don't need to know a whole lot to drive by and go like, there is no way in hell that there is enough people in this city to regularly go back and eat like New Orleans crawfish grill to keep them sustainable. So I always wonder like, man, they just put $1 million into the space. They created this whole thing, and it's so obvious that like there's nobody there for that.
You know, I mean, it's true. You're exactly right. And so I get the thrust of your question now. As you know, when you determine the type of food you do, is to understand your customer, is there a customer appeal for what you're trying to do?
Right.
Like we open an Ethiopian restaurant. No disrespect for the Ethiopian restaurants, I love them, but it just doesn't have a very massive appeal.
Right.
It just doesn't. Even if people go and do it, they're not gonna go in there and order an Ethiopian dish to go. It's just not gonna happen. So I think you also have to be really, really honest with the food type you choose, and you know, just if we take a few steps back and we look at the development or the maturing of the American general market palate. You know, I think spicy is important. You're seeing more and more spicy chicken places coming up, or spicy something coming up in every single thing. So the general market palate is getting spicier. So if for some reason, if you decide to choose up food, think about it being spicy.
Yeah.
Think about it being spicy, and you're probably going to have spicy biscuits. Oh, okay, that sounds, or spicy, you know, I don't know, spicy fried chicken, a spicy pizza. I mean, there can be spicy to it. So I think that just understanding how the market has evolved. Today, also when choosing a restaurant opportunity, you have to consider costs.
Yeah.
It's just such a big thing. And whenever you're starting a restaurant or you have a dream about a restaurant, that's one of the last things you think about. But it's actually very important. And I know we've talked about food costs before.
Yeah, I was going to ask you this question. You said you showed me, you did like a pie chart. This was probably 10 years ago, and you were helping me learn the food industry.
When I was coping with my realities.
I was coming in to just soothe you. But you said it was something along the lines of there's meat, there's bread, and there's cheese. And if you think of a pizza, it's like all bread, very little meat, cheese. That's why it's very cheap, great margins. And then you think of a steakhouse, it's all meat, very little bread, and so maybe just describe what that whole thing means.
Yeah, so this is something that I realized like 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years into opening Salsa Limon. I was like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be raking in money.
Yeah.
You know, what the hell is going on? And so I started diving deeper into it. Okay, so every restaurant, every single one of them, the number one most important thing on their cost of goods is going to be protein.
Yeah.
Meats. All of them. Subway, you tell me, which restaurant?
Yeah.
And it's meats.
Okay.
All of them.
That's the most expensive.
The most expensive item, the most expensive line item.
Okay.
It's always going to be like that. In our case, especially with our steak, I mean, we sell quality.
Yeah.
So it's like our steak cost is the same as all our other protein put together.
Okay.
Because that's just, look how much time it takes to grow a cow.
Right.
Years, how much money? Hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars.
Right.
And then to process it, and then to spice it, and then to, just an insane. So that's a big one.
Okay.
Protein. Okay. The next one is going to be cheese or dairy products. All of them. Cheese, it's just going to be expensive. And then from there, you have all the fillers, if you will. I'm going to put those, I have my fingers doing quotes right now. So what is it? Dough, bread, rice, noodles. This is all very inexpensive.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So that's the least expensive. So when you think about a taco, it has 60% meat.
Yep.
And like 10% tortilla.
Yeah.
And 5%, cilantro onion. So the basic model, profitability model for a taco is not the same, like, for example, a pizza, which in a pizza, you're going to sell this pizza for, $12, $15, and it has like 2 ounces of salami.
Yeah.
Because it's thinly sliced and then spread around so it looks like a lot of meat. But you're mainly eating the cheapest thing, which is dough,
right?
Sauce, 20% cheese, 10% protein. Think of that. So and then that's what I'm talking about is you're thinking you design a restaurant. Keep that in mind.
Yep.
Because the only thing, and then this is the other thing, is the only direction for costs is proteins will continue to get more expensive.
Yep.
There's no question about that. Yep. You don't have to have an MBA from Harvard to know that.
Yep.
So that was something I learned all along. So if you think of tacos, and that's the truth, is that we need to raise the cost of tacos.
Right.
Right now, the way we process Mexican food and tacos, but Mexican food is a little bit different because then if you do get into like a Tex-Mex situation, then you have 25% beans, 25% rice, maybe 30% protein, and then a little bit of veggies. So that a Tex-Mex model is very good.
Yep.
Because it has, but tacos, not necessarily. But yeah, so then that's the thing. You have to, as you sit down and you dream about your restaurant, just keep in mind, unless you're going to be, Del Frisco's or someone like that's going to charge you $50 for your steak, you can give everything else away. You're making plenty of money on protein.
So the other thing that you had told me, and you talked about earlier, you're not just cooking, you're buying, you're servicing people, you're taking care of the restaurant, making sure it's clean. You told me that you have a process for your employees to follow. I think it was 4 things.
Right.
What are those? And did you develop it? Or?
Yeah. Well, no. Well, there's some industry, and then there's some tweaks, right?
Yeah.
And restaurant management and successful restaurants have been around for a very long time. So it's always good. It's not another good thing. Another good piece of advice is, as you go out there and you develop your restaurant, watch what's successful.
Yeah.
Pay attention. And some of it is this, that there's the whole notion in quick service restaurants is kind of like what happens with McDonald's. McDonald's kind of revolutionized quick service restaurants many years ago because of systems and because of simplicity and because of basic. They were able to simplify the touchstones of an experience to very few, summarize them in a very succinct and almost directional ways. It was not a massive catalog or training manual. It's a concept.
Yep.
You can have a manual. Oh, you got to clean the table, and you got to clean the computer, and you got to clean the thing. Or you can say everything has to be spotless.
Yep.
So they developed this whole thing called QSC. Quality, service, and cleanliness. And it's common knowledge. I mean, there's QSC everywhere. You read it, and there's books, and McDonald's did it, and then Burger King did it, and then every other follower of that category lives in the QSC world. Quality, service, and cleanliness. Now I've added one more, which is ambiance. Okay. QSCA is the Milo way or the Salsita way.
Okay.
You have to focus on the place has to be impeccable. And so when you take those concepts and when you apply, I call mercado mentality. Mercado, when I say mercado mentality, I'm talking about like common sense mentality that you would have to have if you were in a market in Mexico or in China.
Right.
Open air market where it's just like it makes sense. This is reasonable. You don't have to be very well educated. But so cleanliness is one of them. Service is the other.
Yeah.
Especially you think about it in the market. And then I don't know if you've traveled to like markets in Mexico or in Asia, where you go to a massive building, a massive warehouse, and you have stalls, right? And so and the whole warehouse is broken up by little regions. So you have the regions where you buy ropes and saddles, and then you have another region where you buy fish. You have another region where you buy flowers. And you have another. So you have people next to someone else selling the exact same thing you're selling.
Yeah.
So the market mentality, these other components have to click in for them to prefer you because they're selling the same thing. So how can you differentiate from someone else if you're selling the same product? With service,
right?
With being cleaner than them, by just being nicer than them, and by even now having better ambience than them. So you can be selling the same product, but if you have all these other components, then you have made yourself, you have given yourself the most weaponry, the most resources to win the race in the long term.
What kind of dovetailing off that, which I think maybe the answer is what we just talked about, but what separates or what makes the best restaurant tours and operators in the country? What makes them great? Is it a combination of factors, or is it the fact?
Well, I think there's another. Obviously, this is not the QSCA, and we have a system called 349, or I guess 449 now. As I added ambiance like 6 months ago. 449 is then how you translate. You go from concept to execution, right? So if I explained to you guys 449,
maybe that's what you had explained to me.
If I explained to you 449, we've had many conversations, Chris. Yeah, I can't remember all of them.
Let's hear it again.
449 is it's obviously we start out with the 4 pillars of success, which are cleanliness, quality, service, ambiance.
Okay,
and we talk about it, and we talk about, for example, ambiance. Ambiance is like, look at that.
Yeah.
Look how the ambiance just changed we just turned the lights off.
Yep.
And it's just like, we just have the glow of the screens. And so just that one little thing, or here's another example of ambiance. You want to create a romantic ambiance. Turn all the lights off and turn on a candle.
Yep.
And boom, you're there. And it's but something that you need to address. And then you have cleanliness, service. So then that's the thing. Those are the four cornerstones, pillars of a successful operation. And if you go to Salsa Limon and you talk to an employee, they should be able to talk about that intelligently, not because they read the manual, but because they understand the concept.
Right.
And then they can articulate that in their own words.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
Check. 4. So that's first 4. Now let's go to the next 4. The next 4 are the laws of operation. Okay. So in the laws of operation, the first thing you need to do is you have to make sure that everything the client touches is clean. It's clean customer. You might get busy and maybe some other places are not as clean as they should be, but with a client touches, must be impeccable. It has to be. The doorknob, the parking lot, the table, where you pull the napkins.
Yep.
Everything.
Okay.
Clean customer. Number 1. Number 2 is 0 orders. You can't be waiting. The customer should not be waiting ever. They might be in a hurry. There might be they're used to getting, you walk into some places and the employees see you and nothing happens. You're like, what if you go do what I gotta go. And so that's the second one is 0 orders. And notice how I'm doing 2 words per category. Because it has to be simple.
Yep.
Then 3, if there's no orders, if the place is clean and there's no orders to make, then you have to go to number 3, which is clean your station. Clean it up. Get it ready.
Yep.
Because the product is better when there's that French concept, mise en place. Everything in order.
Yep.
Clean. The customer sees it. It's engaging. It's awesome. And it's better. The product comes out better. And then finally, the 4th one is everything else. So the first 3 things are done.
Yep.
Then you can go break boxes or chop cilantro. But I would get the salsa limon for what happens is sometimes it still happens. So you have to always keep on sharpening that edge. People just forget, and it's just we're humans, and that's what happens. You have to be constantly. It's like a coach.
Yep.
Or like losing weight.
Yeah.
You have to be constantly working on those things.
Yep.
And so everything else, I would walk into a Salsa Limon that they would be chopping cilantro, and there's 5 tables that are dirty. And I'm like, and I couldn't get upset with them because they're working, right?
Yeah.
They're doing their job. And so then that's where putting things in prioritizing things at an operational level. And this is like the basic training for us. And then finally 9, which are our 9 stations.
Okay.
And here's where it gets a little bit more more nuanced, is that we have broken up the operation into 9 stations. And so we have do you want me to tell you the stations?
If you can do it quick.
Yeah, well, you have the cash register.
Yeah.
You have the hot table where the taco begins, and then the griddle, and then the hot table where all the fillings are, and the cold table where the finishing product is. And then you have the number 1 station is basics, which is basic cleaning.
Yep.
So you have to know how to clean everything. You need to know where to go get the spritz for the sanitizer for the COVID thing, and where the brooms are, and all that stuff. So it's basics, cashier, griddle, hot table, cold table. Now we have a bar.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And we're developing a tortilla station.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have my favorite one of all, the leadership station. The person leading the mission.
Yep.
And they have to be trained, and they have to know, and then here you get into a little bit more details. There's more specific checklists and things. And then, we're developing tools that make that more easy.
Right.
I think technology, the leap in technology has not totally fully permeated all the categories, all the business categories.
Yep.
And so I think in the restaurant world, that's kind of where there's a lot of stuff, and every day something new comes on, and you can't really adopt them all. But finding tech to make that 9 and that leadership position successful is probably the key to success.
And so most restaurants probably have like a 4-4-9 type of system for them, and that's why they're able to grow to 20 locations. And if you went to all 20, it would feel very similar. And
right,
yeah.
Well, not most restaurants. I don't know if we saw a pie chart of how many restaurants are owned by small business people that have less than 3 locations. They probably make up the vast majority of the restaurants, and then there are the multi-units. So all multi-units, Jack in the Box and all the units that have been able to go beyond 3 locations probably have a very sophisticated system like this, like our 449. But most mom and pop restaurants don't, and that's why it's so hard. It's hard for them to keep their head above water, and not only that, but also execute their business
right
for a long time. They just get tired, because it is tiring. It's incredibly tiring.
Maybe this is a loaded question, but from somebody not in the restaurant industry, I sometimes hear that restaurants serve food for break even, and they make all their money selling drinks like iced tea for $2. Is that kind of true, or is it nuanced to the different types of restaurants there are?
I guess the truer statement is that high beverage sales make the business a lot easier to manage, especially if it's alcoholic sales.
Right.
And and quick service is very, very difficult to have high alcoholic sales, because it's not really like, oh, let's go to Chipotle and get loaded.
Yeah.
You're like, no.
You might show up to Chipotle loaded, but you might not be getting there to get loaded.
But you see what I'm saying? Like, so even if you go to Chipotle, you're gonna say, give us another round of margaritas.
Yeah.
You'll never hear that.
Yeah.
You will hear that in Salsa Limon, though, and that's where we're working that through ambiance.
Right.
We have some stratagems to increase our alcohol sales, because although and you look at quick service, beverages do make make life a lot easier when it comes to making money.
And then how I always think about this, and I had Travis Heim on the podcast like a year ago, and I asked him, but you go to a great restaurant, and I go work for you as a chef, and I learn all of your recipes. How do you keep like your recipes proprietary, or do you even worry that some chef might quit and go start the next Salsa Limon with your recipes?
I actually had this conversation with Andrew, and Andrew is like, dude, post the recipes, post them.
Yeah,
because
most people won't do it anyway.
It's incredibly hard to do.
Yeah,
they will try and they will fail.
Yeah,
and the ones that do make it will fail in one of the other 1,000 things that will make you fail.
Yeah.
And the other thing, if it comes from a place like that, where it's like there's theft and there's like bad karma,
yeah, it's
very likely to fail.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some truth to a good moral compass in business that, if you just start, being uncool, it just comes back and you got to pay.
So I'm going to ask a hot button question, because you have been as resilient as anybody, but we're living right now through a pandemic. The restaurant industry has been hit extremely hard. I know probably
service industry, hotels, bars.
Can you maybe just give us a little peek behind the curtain of what it's been like to own 7 restaurants through a pandemic and what y'all did right, and kind of
sure the play-by-play.
Yeah,
we found out, and whenever it happened, it was very scary.
Yep.
And it's funny because a lot of people, a lot of colleagues they came up with their hands up immediately. They're like, "Okay, we're closing. That's it. We're done. We're closing." And I'm like, "Look, hold on. Let's work through the problem." That was the first thing that I would say, is that whenever a crisis hits you, just breathe a little bit.
Yeah.
Sometimes the best, especially when it's really a radical thing, it's give yourself a little bit of time to react to that. Pay attention to what other things that are happening. And so what we did is we obviously, we took it very seriously. We had everybody was like, our employees were very scared, and we said, "Look, you guys, we're going to get through this. We're going to figure it out." And that's what happens, is we've gone through very stressful situations before, that we figure our way through it, so that I was able to keep a little bit of courage, semblance of courage through it. So that helped a lot. The other thing is that whenever this hit us, I think and this goes back to the restaurant selection, the model we chose, a quick service model, behaved a lot different than, let's say, a fine sit down, Grace or Del Frisco's or something like that, which was even, it was a little bit, I would imagine that would be a little bit more daunting. For us, people, we had developed an app of like 5 months before that hit us. So we had an app to go to, and we developed a system for true no contact pickups. We turned on all our lights for delivery, and we were convinced, we know even now, that's one of the things, we knew that people were still out there.
Yeah.
And they were still hungry, and they were still craving Mexican food. It's not like they were just like they disappeared. Right. They're there. Yeah. And so we just turned around and said, okay, how can we make them feel like you can still come pick up some capitanes from Salsa Limon without risking too much. And then finding other ways to get to them. So that I think was the key, is that our model allowed us to not totally shut down and go into what other restaurants were going through, which is just crickets.
And how do you feel, just like, what's your trust level right now of the government? Because it's almost like restaurateurs and people in the service industry have been hung out to dry. It's like, hey, you can open, but maybe in 3 weeks we'll shut you down again. And if you're in LA right now, your restaurant's shut down again after 9 months.
Well, I think that how I feel about the government right now is I feel like they have left us out to dry.
Yeah.
And it was just this whole situation was not was not managed correctly.
Yeah.
Because people are willing, how do they say, it's better to be hard at the beginning and soft at the end than soft at the beginning and hard at the end.
Yeah.
When it's like, for example, raising children, right?
Yeah.
If you give them everything at the beginning, whenever they become, teenagers and they're used to getting everything because baby wants it, it's going to be very hard for you to change that kid's mentality.
Yeah.
And the same thing, and we are like kids. The population, we are like children. So if you come to us and you give us wishy-washy direction, then we're going to say, oh, they don't know. Then we know better than mom and dad know.
Yeah.
And that's where we are right now. We're like, we know better than these guys. They just fumbled the ball. Whereas if we would have taken we're the United States of America. We are going to do this and this is it. And if you don't like it, we're going to come get you. And we're going to find out why you don't want to do it. And you're going to do it because we've done it before. We did it with seatbelts, for example. This real change in behavior and the opportunity here is that we didn't follow our usual protocols. America has been kicking ass for a long time.
Yeah.
We did it in World War II. Hey, you're not going to be building homes like you used to. We're going to develop a new technology so that we can, send steel to the front.
Yep.
And we did it. And we learned and it even improved our systems because through this sacrifice, through working together as a society and listening to each other and trusting the things that we've developed, science for crying out loud, science, dude. Science has always been one of America's competitive advantages.
Yep.
We just develop a tool for everything. I mean, and you see it in carpentry. They have a tool for everything, man.
Right.
They have a laser that will square and a CNC machine that will make it perfect. And so that's the thing is by not fully staying true to education and tech and the American spirit and just squandering those first few months. We don't even know the ramifications because look, and you know this in business as well. A mistake at the highest level, it's going to be painful.
Mm-hmm.
The business will suffer. You will lose employees. You will lose customers. You will lose profitability. You might lose your business.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be very hard. So that's where good leadership comes in. Good leadership sees the issues before they hit you. The bridges are built before you need them to be built. And also, understanding that we are, and as a society, as a country, we've been very successful doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
And it's just because we follow the same thing. At some point, the rules are going to come down and we're going to get the German in us and we're just going to do it right.
Yeah.
We're not going to throw trash. We're not going to do this. And so that I think that's where, as restaurateurs today, I think the government and I think the people making decisions is to protect our economy. Honestly, and to protect the economy, we need to focus on having a middle class, and maybe all the population go into this kind of like timeout. The ball went over the fence,
mm-hmm.
so there's the game has to stop for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Let's go get the ball, and then let's come back and play the game again when the ball comes back. So the ball is over the fence right now, and so we all have to just come to terms with we have a very good thing here.
Yeah,
we have a great country, we have a great economy. Everything is here, but we can't expect it to work as business as usual because it's not business as usual.
Right.
And so the sooner we come to terms with that and that we double down on protecting the economy, there should be stimulus for every single person in the country.
Is there any stimulus? I know there's we can talk about PPP and all that stuff, but is there anything that you're seeing that's going to be just for the service industry or restaurateurs?
Yeah, well, we have, and I'm so glad and thankful that we are in Fort Worth. They were able to there was a program that was brought to me by the Hispanic Chamber, which is called Save the Fort. There's people out there, economists, people that are studying and know that, look, these businesses, which make our life, the quality of life so good for us and keep our economy going, keep our people employed and keep the system flowing, it has to get water. It has to be watered. And so they were able to help us. Now, honestly, I don't know how much more help we were going to get. And not only that, but I'm very lucky that when this hit us, I already had an organization where I have a CFO that can fill out all the applications and knows and we've been organized, and so we can get financials, and we can get we can play the business game. Man, a young restaurateur, if this would have hit me when I first opened, I would be done. So to me, the true responsible thing to do here is to help the economy through this difficult time.
Yep. All right, one more kind of business question, and then we'll wrap it up with some personal ones. But how is food? Everything now is Uber Eats or DoorDash or Favor. The food delivery world is here, and it's not going anywhere.
Not going anywhere. Yeah.
Does that help your business? Does it cut into your margins?
No, I hate it. I hate it. I hate DoorDash and
it's
Uber.
Funny, most restaurateurs say that when I ask them.
And Uber, no, it's absolutely the worst. It is
Why?
Because it's an algorithm. They're providing an algorithm. They're providing a computer system. It's not. Our margins are already tight.
Right.
To go and tell the customer you're going to pay more, and you're also going to pay us, and we're just going to be sitting here with this. It's not cool.
Yeah.
It's not right. And honestly, it's not going to work in the long run. And I'll tell you, like, some of the things we're doing is we want to develop, and we're in the middle of developing Salsita Delivers. I'm doing it, and I want to find, once we have our system figured out, I want to create what I call localdelivery.com, where it's just local restaurateurs, and we're just going to all pitch in and give the driver a better deal. This is why, because DoorDash and Uber Eats, nobody gets a good deal. The only good deal is Uber Eats. They're getting a good deal. Everyone else, the restaurateur, we have to pay, and the customer has to pay a lot more. I mean, have you ordered Uber Eats? You order a pizza, it's like $50.
Yeah, no, I know.
Insane.
I've ordered Salsa Limon on Favor. It costs more to get it to my house than it costs for what I bought.
The food itself.
So my question then would be, why do you participate?
Well, I mean, we're participating right now because we need to. We need to find ways to keep, even though we're not every Favor or DoorDash meal that we sell doesn't give us the full profitability that we get if we were selling directly. It gets a transaction in us. So it's kind of like better to have a little transaction than have no transaction at all, because the product moves, because the pipes are still flowing. But believe you me, I'm taking steps to become independent of that.
Do most of your peers feel the same way?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. What's your favorite restaurant in the world, or maybe in America, besides Salsa Limon?
My favorite restaurant in America. Wow, man. Well, I mean, I'll tell you, one of my favorite restaurants here in the DFW area is a place called Jiangqi.
Okay.
It's a Chinese dumpling place in Richardson.
Okay.
They make it from scratch.
Okay.
It is insane. Like, my favorite is a lobster and pork wet dumpling.
Yeah.
Have you ever had those?
No.
They're like, it's like a little bag, a little bag of pasta.
Yeah.
A little pasta bag, and it has the juice inside. So it's like a little water balloon, very hot water balloon with lobster and pork in it. And so you take this thing, and they come in these steam things. You pick it out, you poke it, and you put some rice vinegar and ginger in it, and then some chili sauce. I'm telling you, dude, I have broken up with girlfriends that don't like that place, because there's nothing that's going to stop me from going to eat at this place. And so it's I would say Jiangqi right now is probably the answer to that question.
We just bought a building up in Richardson, so I'll have to check that out. What's the best advice you've ever received, either personal or business?
Wow, the best advice. Oof. I think the best advice in business, I guess, would be keep it simple.
Yep.
And it just keeps on giving, providing wisdom and just simplicity is super important.
If you owned a billboard on the busiest highway in America and you could put anything on it for the people that pass by to see, what would you put on that billboard?
I mean, as a copywriter, I would want to wordsmith this, but I think the concept would be, a kind society is the best society we can have.
Yep.
We have to be kind to each other. And that's why, like, we think about our grandparents and our parents and this decorum that we used to have, and formality and etiquette and consideration to one another. it made life so good. And versus where we started eroding those things and it becomes just, mean and classless. It makes for violence and hate. And I think as a I mean, I could also, I would also, but I think kindness is probably the most urgent message. But there's another message, which is my overarching.
You can have 2 billboards. We'll
Thank
give you
you
2.
so much.
We'll give you
Thank
2.
You so much.
Pass the kindness, and then we'll see this.
Yeah. So kindness, a kind society would be the first one. The next one would be is recognize that you're a part of the macroorganism. You're not. It's not just you. And Jesus didn't give you all this for you.
Yeah.
That's not it, man.
We're all in it together.
Yeah, look, even the dolphins and the hummingbirds and the wind and the trees and the water and every fucking thing has a right to thrive. And as soon as we start changing and start recognizing that we're not the dog, we're a flea on the dog, okay? And it's a very humbling thing to say, but it's very liberating as well.
I love it. How can people reach you or find Salsa Limon?
Well, salsalimon.com is probably a good start. If they want to reach me, my Instagram is Milo17 Ramirez.
Okay.
And, but yeah, or just be our friends at Salsa Limon. I read everything.
I love it.
So, get in contact with me and let me know what you think.
I met Milo, it was my junior year, my sophomore year, so 14 years ago at his food truck, and we have remained great friends for the last 14 years. And really appreciate you showing up today to do this with me. It means a lot.
Chris, man, you've been a blessing since the day I met you.
I appreciate it, man.
You're a very fine man.
Thanks.
Thank you.